What's up guys, I'm BTC. Lucio was one of the highest picked characters in the game for a very long time, but about a year ago, he just suddenly dropped off. Now, it looks like he's coming back. Even though Lucio is having a hard time right now, a bunch of changes to the game are about to make him one of the most powerful and highly picked characters in the game. But before we get to that, let's look at what happened to kind of drag him down. For a long time, Lucio's pick rate absolutely crushed every other hero in the game. It was typically between 95 and 98%, the second closest hero usually being 10 or more points behind, somewhere in the mid to low 80s or maybe even back into the 70s somewhere. But he was useful in the Beyblade, in the tank meta, but he really started to shine when Dive became really popular around the 5th season. Lucio's speed boost made already highly mobile characters like Winston, D.Va, Tracer, and Genji just unbelievably powerful. It made it so that they could get to almost anywhere in the map incredibly fast, whether it was high ground, low ground, behind corners, through choke points, it didn't matter. They could basically get there in a blink of an eye. And it seemed like it was going to be way too strong for a very long time, and then all of a sudden, Mercy ended up getting her rework. At this point, Mercy became effectively a must pick and completely replaced Lucio. He just dropped off the map entirely. Mercy would later get a series of nerfs in order to bring down the power level of that single-man res, but it didn't matter. Lucio was already gone and forgotten, and at this point, he has the lowest pick rate of all the supports in the entire game. But that's about to change in a big way. Let's take a look at why. Real quick, I want to point out, these changes were not in the patch that we got yesterday. Instead, these are on the PTR, and we can probably expect to get them in about a week. First, Lucio got some pretty substantial buffs. The area of effect for the crossfade is now a lot bigger than it was before, and remember, this isn't just a circle on the ground, this extends up into the air and down below him as well, so there's a pretty big sphere around him that now gets affected by this. And to give you an idea of how large of a change this is, I actually had a pretty difficult time finding a spot on one of the maps where I could show this without having that ring collide into one of the walls. This is one of the few places where you can actually do that. The other big change is a buff to his ultimate. The temporary shields went from an extra 500 to an extra 750. This is going to allow you to survive pretty much any attack for the next couple seconds. There's a couple of ults that will still take you down, but for the most part, your team can just go completely reckless whenever you have this boost because you just have so much extra health. Other indirect changes are the fact that Mercy just got a pretty substantial nerf to her overall healing, went from 60 healing per second down to 50. Not only is she going to be healing less, but it also means she's going to get her ultimate less often as well. And the Valkyrie ult isn't exactly all that amazing to begin with. But probably the biggest thing that's going to bring Lucio back, besides his own buff, besides the nerf to Mercy, is going to be the inclusion of Hammond. He is an incredibly high health character with tremendous amounts of mobility. Basically, wherever Lucio was able to get before, now Hammond can pretty much go right there with him. And yes, Lucio will still be healing a single target less than what Mercy can, but if he's able to heal more than one tank at a time, or to speed boost them in and out of the fight, that is going to be incredibly powerful. Particularly with Hammond, because even though Hammond has a truckload of health, he actually doesn't need too much healing. And the reason is because of the way the adaptive shield works. It kind of functions just like Lucio's sound barrier. So when Hammond goes into a fight, he's going to let himself take a little bit of damage, and then you use adaptive shield. That will give you this massive buffer of bonus health. Lucio can come in and just using his crossfade, he can heal that normal health of Hammond back to full before all that extra temporary health gets taken off. So you have this extended period of time where Hammond can just stay in there, and he doesn't need all that huge extra healing, the single target healing that you would get from like an Ana or a Mercy or something. He doesn't need that because of that big buffer. So that's where characters like Lucio are going to excel in helping him to be even more effective. Not only that, but the current meta, the Grav Dragon, is also going to be a lot worse. Zarya's getting some nerfs, Hanzo's getting a bunch of nerfs. You can no longer damage boost Hanzo when he's using his ult. It's going to be a lot more difficult for Zarya to actually capture more of the enemy. Instead, it's likely only going to be 2 or 3 most of the time. So that combo is going to be way weaker than before. Also, Widowmaker and Hanzo's escape ability has been nerfed, so they're not going to be able to get away as much. Having Lucio speed boost a D.Va, a Winston, a Hammond, or any combination of that into the enemy back line would just completely destroy any Zenyatta they have. It's going to completely destroy any Hanzo or Widowmaker that they have, and it's just going to make that not possible. I think what we're going to end up seeing is 2 versions of dive. There's going to be the triple tank dive with the 3 that I mentioned, and there's also going to be another version which is the disrupt dive. That's going to include Doomfist, not just for the mobility, but also the extra knockaround stuff and the disruption. And then of course you have Sombra, which is going to be pretty effective against an enemy Hammond. Hack and EMP are incredibly powerful against Hammond, being able to prevent him from turning into the ball, to escaping, to using his shields, and also, even after he deploys all of his ultimate, the mines, the EMP will just shut them down for 10 seconds and they don't go off. I think the triple tank and the disrupt dive are still going to be really powerful, even on maps that are traditionally very good for characters like Reinhardt and Zarya, like King's Row. Because with what Hammond can do for moving around and knocking people around and stuff, he's going to be able to just throw that Reinhardt out of the way. Doomfist can also help with that, and Sombra can just hack them, Reinhardt, and drop his shield. Until Reinhardt gets some kind of resistance to all of these crowd control effects, he's just going to be in a really problematic situation, even more so with Hammond. So now you're going to have Lucio, who just speed boosts everyone in. It doesn't matter if they have a barrier, you're just going to go right through it, and then just go right after the backline. And that sound barrier is going to just make all of that even stronger, because when you have a Winston who ulted, and now he has 1,700 hit points, he's not going to be afraid of anything. When you have a Hammond who has 1,900 hit points, he's not going to be afraid of anything. They're going to be able to just go in there and do whatever they want, and unless you have an EMP from Sombra, then you're really not going to be able to do much about it. Now, if Lucio's a main part of this, what's the other support going to be? Really, I can see almost any of them except for Brigitte. I don't think she would fit in this at all. You could have Zenyatta, who just sits in the back and does what he always does during dive. Maybe replace him with Ana now that Nano Boost has been buffed, although I still think that Zen is probably going to be the better pick. And then, of course, Mercy is just going to continue doing what she has done in the past, although it just wouldn't be quite as good. And then, of course, Moira is exceptional at healing multiple high-health characters, which would be, you know, the D.Va, the Doomfist, the Hammond, and the Winston. So she could heal all of them at the same time, and that would be incredibly powerful. So really, I could see any of them, but as long as Lucio is just moving that entire team around, then they're just going to destroy everything. So in 2 weeks, when all of this stuff is underway, I fully expect to see a lot more of the triple tank dive and the disrupt dive that I was talking about, and I think that Lucio is going to go from being the least picked support character in the game to maybe not the #1 spot, but definitely a lot higher than he is now. And it just seems really weird because Blizzard did a lot of stuff like adding Moira and adding Brigitte in order to have anti-dive in the game, but now it looks like almost all of that is just getting thrown out the window, and now we're going to have all dive all the time. And I know a lot of you guys don't like dive in general, but what do you think about Lucio coming back to where he was before? Let me know down below. Thanks for watching, and if you'd like to see more, subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss anything. Also, come hang out in my Discord server and my Twitch live stream. Special thanks to my Patreon supporters. If you'd like to see what kind of cool VIP rewards you can get, check the links down below. And remember, always blame the controller, because it's never your fault.